We're going to cut them off from team sports. We're going to cut them off from participating in the community. We're going to cut them off from fun. It's like, no, we're not.
Recently, we had trans athlete or male athlete AB Hernandez once again take gold in the triple jump, long jump and high jump at a recent state qualifying meet. As this is happening, as girls are forced to share podiums with male athletes, as girls continue to be disenfranchised by male athletes, especially on the high school level, something that Gavin Newsom, the current governor, has admitted is deeply unfair. Let's see what Tom Steyer had to say.
I think when you understand the vulnerability, the stress, the danger of being a trans kid, and you understand that almost half of them try to commit suicide.
Yeah.
And then you think we're going to punish those kids. We're going to cut them off from team sports. We're going to cut them off from participating in the community. We're going to cut them off from fun. It's like, no, we're not. No, we're not. And, you know, as someone who played sports my whole life and loves sports and love playing sports, they're more important things than whether you start on your high school basketball team. And that is standing up for people who are under threat of death.
So there we have it. A complete dismissal of what these young female athletes are dealing with at the moment. A complete dismissal of the hard work that they put into their sports, they put into training to be the best that they can be as female athletes. And yet they are told that they have to compete at a level that goes outside of their very biology, that goes outside of their very beings as females. And they're told that that's perfectly fair. He made so many unfounded, unsubstantiated claims there, saying that half of them take their lives. That is simply not true. And it certainly hasn't been proven or, hasn't been substantiated that them being able to participate in women's sports has a direct correlation with them taking their lives. This is absolute baloney. Using this strong language to guilt people into accepting what they know to be wrong, actually. Even the governor of California, the current governor, has admitted that. Of course, he's still allowing it to continue. He claims to have been somebody who competes in sports. Then he knows very well that it's unfair for male athletes to be competing in women's competitions, even at the high school level, as if high school sports are insignificant. What an absolute disingenuous, trash thing to say. At the high school level, sports are very important. We all know this. There are scholarships on the line. There are places at certain colleges that are on the line. The girl who was labelled the fastest girl in Connecticut missed out on 4 state championships.
I do think I have a lot of raw talent that as I went through high school, I was able to develop. I mean, I definitely worked really hard over my 4 years, and you could see that progression throughout my times. And when I have to compete against a transgender athlete, I just feel completely defeated before I even run the race.
And it is not just for fun. These girls are competing with a specific goal in mind. The same way the boys compete with a specific goal in mind. To win, to gain certain accomplishments, to gain certain benefits. They're being stripped of all of that when they are made to compete in unfair and unsafe situations.
And that is standing up for people who are under threat of death.
He has to use all of these ridiculous claims to make his point. Because what he is saying is simply wrong. It is wrong to force girls to compete against boys. It is wrong to force girls to undress in the locker rooms with boys. And it is wrong to have policies that simply allow any boy to come into their locker room, in and out as they please.
Yeah, so it was my sophomore year. It was about 2 years ago. I went into the girls' locker room, and I saw there was guys in there. And it was the weirdest thing, because it's not like they were using it to change or anything. They were just hanging out. We took that and complained to our school about it. Well, it was just a very odd response. It was like, they just said, well, our hands are tied and we have policies and this is our policy. And you can, if it makes you uncomfortable, you can go elsewhere.
And are they athletes? Are they in there swimming as well?
No, they're not. That's the thing. They're not athletes. And I don't believe they're really doing any sports at all. It's just pure lounging around, hanging out in the locker room as a social space.
Okay. Now this gets super weird. So how are they allowed to get into the girls' locker room? Did they say, "Oh, I identify as a girl"?
Yeah, I guess at school it's just you gotta look like a girl and then identify as one, and that's what gets you in. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's not like we have teachers like making sure who goes or monitoring who's going in and not, and whoever. But yeah, so they just walk right in. It's free to everyone.
That is bizarre.
Because they can claim to identify as a girl and nobody's allowed to question that. How dismissive and how rude to not even think about for a second the impact it has on these girls, on these female athletes. Being put in a position through no fault of their own. The adults are forcing them into this corner. Compete against boys or don't compete at all. They are being excluded from their own sports, from their own podiums, from their own records, all to accommodate entitled male athletes who have other options. They are not being excluded from sports because they identify as trans. They have options that the female athletes do not. They can't go over into other categories and compete in other categories, but these male athletes can compete with the men, in the men's categories, in the boys' categories. They are not being excluded from sports, and they are certainly are not at risk, half of them at risk of taking their lives if they can't compete in the girls' category. That is nothing but a manipulation tactic. And how condescending to say that there are more important things to worry about when these girls work so hard to be the best they can be. They wake up every day when they could be doing other things. They are training. There is immense pressure on these young female athletes. And rather than enjoying this time that they will never get back, rather than enjoying the accolades that they deserve, their athletic careers have been derailed by entitled boys who have no business competing in that category. And the adults, like this clown who claims to want to be state governor, is allowing the rights of these young girls to be trampled on, is allowing Title IX to be completely disregarded. And what's so appalling is they're giving themselves a pat on the back and are convincing themselves and trying to convince others that they are looking out for the disenfranchised, that they are saving lives. How ridiculous. Regarding Tom Steyer's position on trans athletes, I think he's right on the merits. Elite sports need to be sex segregated, but people make up reasons to claim that competitive fairness of youth sports is super important, and it isn't. Plus, there's enforcement problems. Right, how do you think we get elite athletes? They start off in school. What is wrong with these people? There are female Olympic athletes whose names we would never know if they had to compete against boys while they were in school. If they had to compete against men claiming to be women, we would never know the names of these female athletes. They wouldn't be elite if their careers were derailed by males. Why aren't people not getting this? And how dismissive and condescending towards young girls in schools who train very hard. And whether they get to the elite level or not, they deserve fair and safe sports. They deserve for the adults in the room to abide by Title IX. They don't deserve to be subjected to abuse because you don't think that their level of sports is important. Even in middle school, those young girls deserve fair and safe sports. I mean, it's considered so important that there's a Supreme Court case going on at the moment with an athlete who is of that age. So don't tell me that it's not important just because they're in high school. And of course, these are people who probably never competed in sports, who have no idea what they're talking about. It impacts you for the rest of your life when you're able to compete in sports at a young age. It benefits you for the rest of your life, even if you never made it to the elite level. And if elite sports needs to be protected, the steps that it takes for an athlete to get to that level also needs to be protected. And we're only talking about this when it comes to women's sports as well, because these people are showing that they don't care about women's sports. Now, you don't have to watch women's soccer and women's basketball and all of that if you don't want to, but you should see the young girls as being equally valuable as human beings, for goodness sake. The safety of those girls matter. The well-being of those girls matter just as much as male athletes. Because we're only having this conversation one way. If it was boys being affected at a high school level, to the same degree, I wonder if these people would be just as dismissive and say that there's more important things to worry about. Non-elite women and girls are human too. Look at these girls' faces and tell me it's not effed up to make them share a podium with a boy. Unless females are elite athletes, we have no right to our own sports, huh? We know that makes no sense, right? It's important to girls. Girls want their own sports. I know I was a girl who didn't have our own sports. We fought to get them because we wanted them. I think you need to check whether there's other stuff teenage girls should hand over to teenage boys to make them feel better. Now you've decided girls' feelings aren't super important. You don't want to miss anything. So again, these people continue to tell on themselves. They continue to show how little they value women and girls. They don't care that girls don't consent to this, that girls want fair and safe sports, that girls deserve fair and safe sports, that Title IX affords them that. And California is just completely disregarding federal law. I have 2 daughters that do high school track and soccer, and I beg to differ. They train hard for long hours in all kinds of weather. They absolutely deserve fair competition. They are not simply extras in a boy's fantasy about being a girl. And of course, the girls have to work extremely hard, but the boys are allowed to be as mediocre as they want to be, and they still get to win gold medals. They still get to acquire records. They get to stand atop the podium as a mediocre male athlete. How is that acceptable? It isn't. And I'm glad Tom Steyer is being called out for his misogynistic comments about young female athletes. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video. And a huge thank you to all of those who have hyped my videos. It is greatly appreciated.